If everyone can get their seats. All right, our next speaker is Hiba Krisht of A Veil in a Dark Place blog, and it's going to be talking about how to welcome minority students to your group. All right, let's get started.
Thank you. Okay, so it's a little bit more specific than minority groups. Just trying to figure out how to clip this on. It's just, okay. It's a strange clip. So I'm going to be focusing specifically on not only minority groups, but specifically people who are not American, who are not either raised in the States or originally from the States, international students. That could also include special groups such as asylum seekers, people from the third world, people who have experienced war or another sort of traumatic experience and so on, and how you might welcome them as secular students in your group. Before I start, I'm going to sort of give a general warning that I might do or say things that make you uncomfortable. So I'm going to sort of ask you to maybe prepare yourself for that. It does have a purpose. It's not gratuitous. So what does this mean when I do this? Thumbs up. What does this mean? Okay. There are cultures and countries in the world where this means what this means. Okay, right now I'm going to ask us as a group to sort of form our own little culture. Okay, we are a culture, and we are a culture formed of the people inside this room. That's who we are. And we're going to redefine this to mean what we think this means. So every time I go like this, it's going to mean great job. Okay, so every time when in this talk I go like this, is going to mean great job. Okay, and we've decided this, and this is what it means. Because, it's a hand gesture, and, hand gestures are a little bit different than facial expressions. They're not universal. Okay, now I just want you to set that aside because we're going to go back to it. Okay, it might seem that what we do now is a little bit unrelated, but we're going to go back to it. So remember that. Is that okay? Great. Now I'm going to ask you guys to watch this little video. I know that some of you have probably seen it. It was very popular earlier this year, but let's watch it again. Yeah? Together.
Hi there.
Hi.
Nice day, huh?
Yeah, finally, right?
Where are you from? Your English is perfect.
San Diego.
Where are you from?
Born in Orange County, but I never actually lived there.
I mean before that.
Before I was born.
Where are your people from?
Well, my great-grandma was from Seoul.
Korean. I knew it. I was like, she's either Japanese or Korean. I was leaning more towards Korean.
Amazing.
There's a really good teriyaki barbecue place in my apartment. So I actually really like kimchi.
Cool. What about you? Where are you from?
San Francisco.
But where are you from? Really? You're Native American?
No, regular American. Oh, well, I guess my grandparents are from England.
Oh, well. I think your people's fish and chips are amazing. Where? Must be a crane thing.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So, yeah, thanks. So, what was problematic about his interaction with her?
Everything.
Let's try to be a little bit more specific, okay? What was one assumption that he was making that was just really, really problematic?
She's not American.
She's not American, okay?
There's one cohesive Asian culture.
There's one cohesive Asian culture, or maybe Korean culture. What else?
Immigrant status.
Somehow, like, people of color or people from foreign cultures, like, are more cohesive in their beliefs and views.
Yeah.
And that he is a regular American?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That she was foreign.
Okay, you guys are really good at this. Okay.
She's not being honest.
She was not being honest.
Trying to fake it.
Okay. So there are a lot of things that are going on, but the two sort of like overarching things is one that he was questioning her national belonging simply based on her ethnicity. Okay, he was questioning basically her belonging as an American. The other thing was that assuming that she was Korean, like he was basically giving these stereotypes about the food and the culture and so on, and you know, he was presenting it in a way that like, oh, I know these things about you and I'm going to tell you these things about you. Now, the first time I showed this video to my students, I was an instructor of composition at Indiana University. They understood the first one, the American one. What they didn't really understand, they had a difficult time understanding, well, if she was Korean, they're like, well, what if she was Korean? So what? So what if he says that he likes teriyaki? So what if he says these things that like belong to like her culture? Why is that bad? Okay, and so that's basically something that I'm going to focus on. So I'm someone who comes from outside of the United States. I've been in the US for a little less than 2 years. And the process of adjusting has been one that's been a little bit alienating because I receive these sorts of microaggressions all the time. If you were just at Miri's talk, she was talking about microaggressions. And what's going on with a lot of these things is that, you know, there are all of these, there's all this curiosity about where you're from and what it's like. And while we can appreciate that in saying like, oh, there's a diverse person in my group. There's someone in my group who might give, you know, an alternative perspective, who might teach us something about the world. There is, you know, a method of doing that. Now I'm going to talk to you about my friend Grace. So I don't like sort of, I'm always focusing on me. My friend Grace is from Malaysia, and she came to the States, you know, as an adult like me. She came to the States for college. And she told me that, so this time this is something that I'm calling listen past the accent. So she told me in the first 2 years when she was in the US, she would always go to lunch in the dining hall with the international students. It's not that she didn't want to hang out with the Americans, it's that it was exhausting for her because she felt that they couldn't listen past her accent. That even though she was well-spoken, even though, you know, everything she said was grammatical, not that, you know, if she wasn't either of those two things that would have justified it, but even though, just because she spoke with a heaviness to her voice, people thought that she was less intelligent, people thought that they didn't understand, they basically didn't understand what she was saying, and they always thought that she was saying something a little bit, you know, a little bit lower down, and she was tired of feeling misunderstood and alienated all the time. So she hung out with the international kids, and then something happened. So she stayed in the States, and her accent became normalized. So she normalized her accent, and then she would walk around and she would sound like an American, and she did it to adjust, and she no longer got the sort of, oh, you know, I don't think your English is good enough because you're a foreigner, because I can hear this heaviness in your voice, and people would mistake her for an Asian American instead of, you know, someone who was born and raised in Malaysia. But then something else would happen. So she was at a conference recently, and you know, her roommate asked her, where are you from? She's like, oh, I'm from Malaysia. And her roommate's like, no, your accent is perfect. I can't believe you're that exotic. So, yeah. So it's like a double bind. And a lot of international students find themselves within that double bind, within, you know, trying to navigate the space of integrating and trying to fit in and trying to do something that makes them not, you know, feel alienated and at the same time feeling like themselves. And now, when I talk to Grace, she says that sometimes when she's at home and she's, you know, she tries to bring back her old accent, because when she listens to herself talking, she doesn't recognize who she is. She feels like even within herself, there's something about her that is not her. So there are costs to integration and normalization that people often really don't know, because it's something that could be all around you. Okay, I feel like I sometimes can get treated better if I straighten my hair before I leave the house. Okay, if I dress in a way that's more quote-unquote white. So where I come from, yeah, everyone has Western clothes, everyone has skirts and shirts and jeans and so on, but the way they sort of mix it and match it and the styles are different. The styles are the patterns are bolder, the colors are bolder, the makeup is heavier where I come from, and I like that. It feels like me. But if I walk out looking more like I'm gonna blend in, you know, I have the cost of not being stared at everywhere in my small little Midwestern town. But against that, I have the cost of not feeling like myself, of feeling like I'm trying to be like somebody else just so I get treated properly. Okay, and so, you know, and it's lots of things. It's things that I didn't ever encounter that I didn't ever expect that I would encounter. Even things such as utensils. I had no idea that when I came to the States, there would hardly be any spoons in the restaurants. You guys eat with forks and knives, and that's fine, but where I come from, people largely eat most things with spoons. And I had no idea how difficult it would be to me to never have a spoon when I looked for one. And what else is there? And you know, and I could be on a bus or on a street, and if someone's calling from home or my mom is calling, I have to think about, oh, do I answer the phone and speak in Arabic in front of people and then have all the, you know, the glares and the stares, and some people tell me, well, why don't you learn English? Which is really ironic because I'm an English instructor at the university level. So, yeah. So I have to navigate all of that. And you know, and learning to eat food that's different, and everything smells different, and so on. And I wanna talk about this in a way that you guys maybe may understand. Feeling that you are, you know, you're fundamentally different from the people around you, and this is a thing that I feel like people within circles of non-belief, secular people, experience a lot of the time, especially if you come from a very conservative town, if you come from a very religious town, if your family is very religious, and you feel like you either have to hide, you know, what your beliefs, or you know, or you're going to basically be subject to scrutiny, and you're going to feel alienated, you're going to feel like you don't belong. Who here has, you know, has felt that? Yeah. Now here's the difference. The difference is that, you know, while it's really, really unfun, you can hide it. It's not in how you look and as soon as you open your mouth and the way that you talk and the gestures that you know. And the thing is, it's not exactly comparable to like an emblem or a scarlet letter. It's a little bit more, even more difficult than that, because you have to make choices. It's more like something that comes out in the tone of your voice. So if you keep silent, if you walk around limiting yourself in your interactions and you keep silent, people are not going to know that you have this, you know, this sort of thing that you know, that causes your alienation. But that's the choice you have to make. And having to make that choice somehow even makes it more difficult, because if the letter is there, it's there no matter what you do. You don't have to walk around thinking, oh, do I straighten my hair today? Do I wear jeans today? Or do I feel comfortable in my skin today? You don't have to balance, do I have to feel, you know, comfortable within my own skin, or do I have to, you know, deal with people's microaggressions today? Okay, so from that, I want to segue into maybe things that you guys have felt that are similar to that are more visible. Maybe when you were in school, when you were a kid, when you were a little bit more sensitive. Maybe you were the only person who wore glasses in your class. Maybe you were the only person who had braces. Maybe it was even something more embarrassing. Maybe you were the first girl in your grade to get her period or something like that, and somehow people found out. Maybe there was this huge trend that was like popular and made you cool, but it had to do with an expensive item of clothing or something that your parents couldn't or wouldn't buy for you. Who here has, you know, experienced some sort of alienation based on how they are perceived because of their appearance or something like that within their group at some point in their life? Who wants to share? Yeah.
With like in the black community, it's like a lot of hyper masculinity and stuff. So like a lot of dudes with like, now I buy Air Jordans, but you know, when I was like growing up, my mother, even though she can afford it and stuff, she's just like, why do you need to have a $100 pair of shoes or something? Well, everyone else has them, and you know, my mom was like, well, if you want to buy them, then you need to get the money yourself or something. And I remember kids used to just really rag on me because I didn't wear like, you know, Air Jordans. I would wear like starters or Shacks or something. So you know.
So what?
I know.
So what if you didn't have this, you know, this expensive pair of shoes? Do you need an expensive pair of shoes to feel validation? Do you need an expensive pair of shoes to have a sense of personhood? I mean, what's the big deal?
I mean, now I you know, buy shoes and stuff.
No, what was the big deal back then? I mean, your mom was right. What's the big deal? Why are you so worked up about it? Okay, yeah. I'm very sorry if I made you feel bad right now, yeah. but you know.
I never really cared about where people said that.
But yeah, but that is the way that we are reacted to a lot of the time when we try to speak up about this. You know, it's like, what's the big deal? I don't understand why it should be a problem that you don't, you know, that you look a little different than other people, or you sound a little different than other people, or you don't have this thing, or you don't do this thing. And you know, and the purpose of making you uncomfortable just then, I'm really sorry, is to sort of demonstrate how this might work, right? So back to the hand gestures. Let's talk about hand gestures again. So another hand gesture, and here's a little story, another hand gesture that is common in the Middle East where I come from is this. Who can guess what this means?
Money.
Okay, you guys think it's money because of this, but I'm doing this, it's something different, yeah.
To eat.
No?
I think it's when you're angry at someone, you put emphasis on it, or
Nope. Okay, it's good that you actually said that. So where I'm from, this basically means hold on, wait a bit, just a little bit, okay? But there's a cultural difference because this same gesture in some Southeast Asian cultures means something along the lines of screw you. So I grew up in Saudi Arabia, and we had, and you know, there's a migrant worker system there, and there's a lot of problems to do with that and so on. Let's not get into that. But you know, a lot of the migrant workers would work in gardens and service and so on. Again, very problematic, but there was a story where one of my mother's friends was on the phone, and one of the gardeners was trying to talk to her through the window, and she was just doing this, telling him, just hold on a second, you know, I'll get to you in a minute. And he thought that she was doing, I don't know which one. But yeah, so you know, that's this sort of disconnect, and he felt the sort of rage and confusion, misunderstanding that you would feel if I just went up to you and did this. Now, I've been doing this a lot when we've been, you know, throughout the whole thing. And even though at the beginning we agreed that this means great job everyone, even though we agreed on this, and this is like our understanding, this is a thing we learned, this is a way we've integrated, this is a way we've normalized this. This means great job. That's not going to remove the connotations that we know about it. It's not going to remove the way we feel when suddenly someone does this and then takes a second for us to remember, oh, no, it means good job. It doesn't mean what I thought it meant. Okay, and this is not to say that it's the fault of anybody who does this to you in a place where everybody there knows that this means great job. It is only meant to say that this is very difficult. It's very difficult for people. It's very difficult for people from other places who are trying their best to come into this country and integrate and so on. And it's a signal. What is this? It's a signal. That's what it is. And it's not the only signal. There are signals everywhere. There are signals coming at you in all directions. They're in gestures, they're in facial expressions, they're in the signs on the street, they're in the traffic signs, and they don't always mean what you think they mean. They mean different things in different places now, and sometimes it can get really, really nasty. To give an example, so the traffic laws are different in the Middle East. I have an Egyptian friend who, you know, because she's used to the traffic laws in the Middle East, the first time she was pulled over for speeding here in the US, she immediately got out of her car, because that's what you're supposed to do in the Middle East. Before she knew it, head down on the dash, being cuffed, being patted down, because people, you know, the police officers thought she was trying to escape. All because, you know, what she thought being pulled over, it meant something different than what it actually meant to her. And it does lead to a lot of misunderstandings, a lot of violations, and a lot of really intense pain a lot of the time. So with that in mind, what can we do to support secular students? What can we do to support secular students who are coming into our group, who are coming from international places? Some of the time they're asylum seekers, so they're here for good, they're not just students. Some of the time they've come from, you know, a subset of them have come from a war-torn country or come from a really, really oppressive religious background. Some of them have experienced severe trauma due to religion because, you know, some religious norms are far more oppressive in some places than other places. For example, I don't know if you guys know this about me, but you know, the Muslim veil, the headscarf, I wore that for 15 years, from when I was 8 years old to when I was 23. And I didn't have a choice. I am one of those women you hear about who was forced into it. And that is fascinating to people. And they think that, oh, tell us about the Middle East and tell us about this perspective. And it's a good thing because, you know, we are sharing things in our secular groups and we're learning things and we're trying to sort of expand our horizons. We're trying to make our critique better. We're trying to find out what is it really like for people in the Middle East? What is it really like for Muslim women? Can you tell us? Of course, the cost of that is that you're asking someone to recount something that's really difficult for them when, you know, they are in a place of alienation and trying to adjust and so on to begin with. So what can you do to support the people in your group so you guys can, you know, still mutually benefit from this collaboration? So one thing is to avoid turning people into a curiosity. And you know, I don't need to tell you that saying things like, oh, you're so exotic, even if you mean it as a compliment, is very, very counterproductive. It makes you feel like, you know, you're an animal in a zoo. I'm going to say it that way. It makes you feel like you're an animal in a zoo. It makes you feel othered. And then, you know, inquiries. If you want to ask someone or if you want to find out more about their culture, maybe try to take a step back and don't do what, you know, what that guy did and start with what you know about them and what you like about them. Oh, I really love hummus. Oh, there's this great falafel joint down the street. We should go together. It shouldn't be about what you want and what you like if, you know, if your purpose really is learning about other people and learning about where they come from. Because, you know, even if your stereotypes happen to be correct and this person you know from the Middle East happens to really, really love hummus, and it's not just because they're Arab, it's because they love hummus, it's still, you know, it's still about you trying to find some sort of similarity instead of trying to see what they have to say. So try not to make it about you if your object is to listen. And another thing that I see that is maybe a little bit less, you know, a little bit less, what's the word? You know, overt? Yeah, a little bit less overt. When people take the knowledge that you've given them, when you take the knowledge that people have given you because, you know, you've learned all these things and you know what your friend says, and then you go elsewhere and you use that knowledge to make your points, to make your arguments. Okay. Now, a lot of the time, what you might be doing is you might be using the oppressive experiences of others, you might be using the pain of other human beings, sometimes without their knowledge, sometimes without their, now if it's with their knowledge and their consent, that's another thing. But we tend to say, oh, I have this friend who went through this, this, and this. I was talking to you guys about Grace. I had a long conversation with Grace and I got her consent to do this, and she's gonna see it because we're gonna put it online before I came to talk to you about her experiences, right? Because using the experiences of other people to make a point, no matter how valuable that point, can dehumanize them. So if you have international people in your group, if you have people who are just capable of giving you a perspective that you've never had before, insight into a group that you could never have experienced unless you went somewhere, you know, across the world and learned another language, that's an invaluable resource. Treat it well and consider what they might be going through. Questions?